Thank you for having me. As he says, we've been knowing each other for a long time. I guess we started our businesses pretty much the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so once a year we call each other and say, how are you doing? So I'm proud to be here and I thank you for having me here. I know nothing about your industry. What you guys have been just talking about here is just like Chinese to me. Actually, my Chinese is better. Is there somebody speaking after me?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I fear that would be between you and the drinks because I'm going to talk to you about data. Okay, you're data people to some extent. And I guess what I would like to, I think Emmanuel is inviting me today because he would like to share with you, maybe, take one step back when it comes to data and try to get like some kind of a full picture. I think we've just seen in the previous presentation that the more it goes, more external data are injecting in the logic of things, right? And this is what's happening to my business, in fact. And I tell you why. So we're a Spanish company. We do data and we focus on traveler trends. That's the only thing that is of interest to us. So we process as many air reservations, nothing to do with car. We don't know car. So that we can understand, model, forecast, traveler trends. Once you said that, you haven't said anything. It's like everybody's travel is forecasting. I mean, your tourism board, your airline, what are we talking about? And when I got into this business, which is obviously somewhat of a big data business, which was about aggregating as much air reservation as I could, we process 18 million every day. I realized that people were doing very, very different things, but my first customers were actually tourism boards. Because these guys get, the number of visitors to their destination, make it a region, a state in the US, a city, a country. It's like 3 months later. I mean, India is 2 years later, but everybody's doing what he can. And that is obviously, as you know, a super highly computerized business, the travel industry. So we're thinking, we get this booking every day. Why is it that we cannot process this and convert it into visitors at the end of the day, right? Because that's for tourism board is what matters. So that's where I started. And the relevancy of what I'm going to be telling you today may or may not be. I leave it to you. But at the end of the day, your ecosystem relates to the number of visitors that are visiting this destination. I guess that, unlucky you, every visitor to your destination is not renting a car. But at the end of the day, they are, the potential business of yours, if you will, right? And this is where my relevancy comes in. So in my presentation, we discussed with Emmanuel that I'm going to bore you with generic travel trends data, so you got to get a sense of where this world is going. In a tactical way. We don't know 3 years down the road. We know 2 months down the road, like you guys do with the On the Book, right? But in a big scheme of things. And so I would like to share a little bit about my business, how we build this, what we do, and have a poor tent about trying to find why we are relevant. We work with some of you. We work with some car rentals in the world. It's not our focus. And I'm going to tell you why. But we've tried to do the best we could to try to put into perspective the things we have and the relevancy possibly to your business. That makes sense? So far, so good? So far, so good. I'm going to pull up my phone here, not because I'm expecting any call, but I just want to measure the time I'm spending on this, not to bore you more than necessary. So the first thing I discovered is that the traveler is an economical agent. Everybody said a traveler is a booker, is a passenger. No. He's an economical agent. So you understand now that I sell forecast. How many Chinese in London on May 5th? And you know who was one of my biggest buyer? Luxury brands. Because if the Chinese are coming, obviously they're buying. Which got me to think, whoa, I'm coming from the travel industry. I've been working in GDSs, I've been working with hotels, I've been working, and we're like, in this closed circle of ours saying, where is my belly button? Where is my GDS? Where is my PNR? Whoa, from a money standpoint, the value of the traveler is much beyond. When I started working in the travel industry in the early 90s, we were like accommodating the business guys, and because we're Germany here, the German going to Palma de Mallorca. That was what travel was about. But this has changed. Nowadays, we're looking at travel as being a component of my GDP. In the situation where we are, specifically in Occidental country, where our GDP is so mediocre, at least compared to Asia, for our politicians, it's become easy to say, hey, why don't we drag more tourists to our destination? Creating business, spending money, that's pretty cool. So the travel industry has changed really very much. I don't know if you've got this perspective. Not too many of you are as old as I am. So maybe you haven't that photographic picture that I'm trying to share with you. But I think it's an important component. And the other thing that came to me was to say, well, okay, the traveler is an economical agent, but his behavior changes based on where he is in his trip, right? That's why he wears a different name. He's a searcher, and then he's a booker, and then he's a passenger, and then he's a shopper, and then he's a visitor, a tourist, then hopefully he's a renter, and he bears a different name, but because he's a different economical agent at every step. And what we get, to make it extremely simple, think about this, a PNR, right? Everybody knows what PNR is, right? Which is a reservation. So we aggregate these 18 million reservations every day and try to say, okay, well, that's the demand for the future. This is where people intend to go. Well, they kind of intend, maturely, because they've already booked. It's not like they're looking on the internet. And that's how we build our models, if you will. Does that make sense so far? Yeah. And then when I started this business, obviously, we went to the tourism boards for the reason I was saying earlier. Thailand wants to know whether they're going to get their fair share of German for Easter, because it's relevant. They're spending a lot of money here in ITB and other places, or with the tour operator, to say, bring more Germans to my destination. And everybody's doing this. That's where this money is going, from the governments to try to foster. And that is why they work with us. So obviously, when, one day we're a Spanish company, we're based in Valencia, and one day I was interviewing a guy that we ended up recruiting, and he said, oh, I get it. You for these bookings, basically around the world, basically you have a sensor of human activity, and I love the idea, but if you go down to just the notion of booking, it's the willingness of people to travel for plenty of reasons. I heard talking about events. We manage an event database. And our customers are paying this for us, not only because they want to know when Chinese New Year is, they want to know what's the impact of a volcano eruption, they want to know the devaluation of rupee in India is having on travel, they want to know if the fact that Indonesian Prime Minister is being cured right now in Singapore is having an impact on travel. You know what it does? They want to know whether, what is impacting, what are the triggers to that demand. And this is really where we work. So we process all this data, putting on a screen, try to put event at the bottom, trying to find out why things are happening or not happening. If it's the reverse engineering of an economist who come up with like a great rule, and then we'll find data to support the rule, right? We do the other way around. We put data, have this graph, and we say, why? Why is there an increase, a double-digit increase of demand of Chinese booking to go to France now? Yeah, that's our business. So I guess I should add, for the sake of the next step, which is everything we do is daily. Everything we do is daily, obviously, and it's forward-looking. So we have this, interesting ability to forecast and anticipate, how many Germans we get to any destination, with which flights, at which hour they arrive, how long they're going to stay there. It's a party of how many people are in this booking. Are they going to, if they're going to Reunion Island, for example, are they also going to spend 3 days in Mauritius, combined trips? That's part of the things we do. But I keep that for the second part of my presentation. The first thing I wanted to do here is to give you a little bit of a background data on where we are. When we look at data, we tend to look at the numbers. That's a mistake. The very first thing that needs to be done is to look at the methodology. Otherwise, the data are completely irrelevant. Our customers are not interested in load factors or anything else, or the volume of guys getting to an airport. I mean, if 80% of them are transiting, how is that relevant to your business? It's not. right? So here we're looking at the people that made international arrivals between the 1st of January to the 31st of December 2018. There's a mistake here. Compared to previous year. And we're only looking at the people staying between 1 and 20 nights. Because otherwise it's relevant. It's a backpacker, it's a, ethnic travel, so the segmentation stopped there really. And I wanted to show you this map and saying, that's what happened in terms of arrivals, in terms of tourists, if you will, last year. Where we're obviously seeing that we're up 3% globally. Where we're obviously seeing that Asia is really driving, even though from an international standpoint, Europe is a bigger share. Now, obviously, when I fly from Brussels to Paris, it's an international flight. When the guy in China is flying from Shanghai to wherever in the West, it's a domestic flight. But if you look at this methodology, Europe, from an international standpoint, is the biggest. But as most of us Occidental, our growth is mediocre, 1.2, and the Americas, it's mediocre as well. So Asia Pacific is really the driving force behind it. We've seen this year Africa changing. I don't know how to say this, but we've seen some trends that could be foundation for more dynamism, I would say. Actually, it was, among other things, driven by the power that Addis in Ethiopia is taking versus Dubai, which typically, historically, or at least over the last year, has been like the leading door into Africa, if you will. That's interesting, because Dubai is still here, but Addis is really big. Yeah. Anyway, that's really getting, and by the way, obviously this Asia Pac trend is essentially driven by Chinese. Not too boring? All right. Another thing that is always interesting to note that everybody is focused on long haul, but our air traffic at the end of the day is completely regional. Talking to Middle East, talking about Dubai, in terms of visitors, not in terms of hubs. These are absolutely regional. And in Asia, it's the same. And we're discussing with Emmanuel the impact of the terrorist attack we had in France. The Chinese stopped traveling to Europe. They decided to travel in the region, but they're still traveling. That's the good news. The bad news, not coming to France. Bad news for the French. So 78% of this business here is a regional business. And that regional market is growing faster than the international business, per se. China is a driving force. For the last 2 years, India is coming. That's interesting. Their habits and their behaviors are very different from a tourist standpoint, if you will, but they're coming. And I would dare to say that most of these dynamics that we're saying, not Taiwan, is largely due to the increased volumes and increased capacity of seats, if you will, settled by airlines, between China and the rest of the world, right? So basically, if China opened 4 more flights to Australia every day, it's clear that there will be more Australian flying to China because you're filling this plane, right? So this is the technicality. We're in Berlin, so I thought I needed to share some German data. And I've just used that as a use case, which is obviously what we're looking at is forward-looking. All the bookings we have on the books for this destination, we see Hong Kong get a great interest from Germans. I cannot tell you why, but it's a reality. China, USA, Morocco is on the regain. Indonesia, Mexico, Maldives. Not that it's fascinating for your business, but obviously the ability to look forward in a big picture thing, because we can do that down to the day, down to the hour, down to the terminal, right? Is interesting, and I'm using this to showcase. So capacity is essentially growing in Asia, which means that our European airlines are having more difficult times. It doesn't mean that the Chinese airlines are not having difficult times, specifically the Indians, by the way, because so many low costs, there's no money to be made anymore. Well, you have the usual suspect. I say Qatar is an interesting one here, essentially because they've been obliged to reinvent themselves after the pressure that was put by them, by Dubai and the allies in the region, right? So they had to reinvent themselves. We looked obviously at the failure of an airline. When an airline fails, basically this means that fewer people will not I mean, technically fewer seats available to your destination. That typically means that potentially fewer people would get to your destination, and that can have impact on your business, right? So we look at this, for example. So we look at Germania's failure and see how that is impacting in terms of capacity and in terms of demand. So for example, Lebanon and Cyprus are totally hit. Israel is as well. The capacity in Serbia is being recuperated by alternative airlines. Egypt is stalling. Greece and Bulgaria are down. Spain is down. Turkey is increasing, which actually is showing some stuff, which is what we've been seeing since last year, which is like Germans and a lot of Europeans actually are less interested by Spain, now that the Mediterranean region got opened up again. So that includes obviously Greece, but it also includes Tunisia, Morocco. It includes Egypt and Turkey, obviously. I know there was some interest in Brexit. Again, forward-looking. How are people making reservation to go to the UK or to get the hell out of the UK? I don't know. Because obviously all these geopolitical events have an impact on the way demand shapes up, if you will, right? Again, it can be currency, it can be a perception. Perception is huge. I'll give you an example. When we had the Ukraine crisis, we saw the Russian bookings collapsing immediately. And the rationale behind this is to say, you know what, I'm Russian, I'd like to go to Paris, but lately, not sure. I think I'm going to give up, going to give it some time. I can still travel in 3 months, okay. So people stop booking. We got this every day, so the gauge, if you will, is really fascinating to observe. And then it was kind of catching up a little bit, but then because of the geopolitical environment and restriction enforced against the Russian economy, the ruble start collapsing, and you get this cross thing, which is like the bookings just remain flat. Initially, it was this emotional thing of saying, "Well, I'm Russian, I'm not going to go to France," to a situation where I can't afford anymore, right? And we work with a lot of governments. Every time there is a situation like this, we work with 50 countries, just to try to measure, if you will, the impact that any of these events might have. Because as you well know, if you're not getting bookings today, you're not going to get passengers, get visitors, renters in the coming 2 to 3 months. That's the problem. So it's no use to say, well, when are these guys coming? The question is, when are these guys booking? Because when these guys are booking, then you know that 2 to 3 months later, they're going to come up. And that varies by market by market. Give you the example of Japan. When Ebola struck in Western Africa, our customer, South Africa, came to us and said, I don't know, is something wrong with your data? The Japanese are not booking. So we talked to the Japanese, leading travel agency there. So why are you not booking South Africa? But South Africa is Africa. Africa is Ebola. Say, yeah, right. Well, Western Africa is closer from Paris than Durban. So, but it's a true thing. It's a true thing. We could measure it. So. This is tangible sometimes, and sometimes completely emotional, and that's what we try to measure. So forward-looking, inbound UK. So German people like to go to the UK. The Netherlands people for the Easter holiday, and people from the Netherlands, Spanish people, French, Italy. There's great demand. Only the Swedish, the Swedes. I don't know. But that means there is an interest from European source markets to go to destination UK for the Easter period right now. And for summer, because obviously we have on the books and we do our own forecast, this is what it looks like. The tour operator forward booking for summer 2019, which is outbound in this case. The previous one was inbound, and this is outbound. In other words, that's about British people that want to travel to some destination for this summer. So in terms of forward bookings, we're minus 7% for Spain. Greece is kind of stalled. Cyprus is down. Portugal is down. Yeah. Italy is up. Croatia is up. Bulgaria is up. you could see that there is a shift um, in that demand, right? This demand is different, and the aggregated year over year is negative at this point in time. We think that we've captured, we got data from a lot of tour operators as well. We think that we capture 72% of the bookings that will be made for 2019 period. So that trend is serious, you know. So it means that it seems at this point in time that the demand for traveling outside of the UK from British people is depressed compared to previous year. That makes sense? Very generic, right? But from very generic, you know, I'd like to state that this is the world you're operating in, right? The immediate relevancy of it is relative, unless I would share data about your destination or even maybe one of the terminal you're operating, maybe. But the big picture comes from there. For summer 2019, the South Mediterranean destinations are, you know, I was telling you there's a shift here. Turkey is super hot, Egypt, Jamaica, actually. Tunisia is back. Yeah, I mean, you got it. It's self-explanatory, but you see the trends.
Sorry, regarding Turkey, is it because you think that in 2018, in fact, there was still this economical, political, potentially security issue, and then little by little it's going to be digested by the market, therefore Turkey is back?
In fact, yeah, when it comes to Turkey, there is a year-over-year thing. We're talking about 2018, and it's compared to 2017. Yeah. 2017 was within or in the aftermath of terrorist attack, demonstration, or, you know, that was a mess, specifically in Istanbul. Not in Istanbul airport, by the way. Transit was pretty cool. So the pink one, which is arrival summer 2018, was splendid, 55% increase. And today, for this year, we're not going to do 55%, but if you look at demand at this point in time, it's 38% over what we had last year. Yeah, so they're on the right. Same for Egypt. Egypt has reopened. It's not always true. Some charm is not as successful as it used to be. There are alternative destinations on the other side of the sea there. You know, Cairo is kind of okay. It's essentially leisure. So the destinations have changed a little bit, but and there's been until recently a ban from the UK government to say don't go there. That was lifted like 6 months ago. It's very recent, right? So so yes, it's destination on the rise, and obviously that triggers the fact that there is a deficit of interest for destinations such as Spain, which is obviously suffering. I mean, if the Germans don't go to Spain, it's the end of the world. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, time flies, but happy to get back on any of this. So here's what my guys put together for you. And obviously it's super ambitious because we have no idea about your business. There's a number of assumptions, which is you can stop 1 second and say, well, you know what? If I'm able to anticipate and get the volumes of travelers that will be getting to my destination, I have something. You know, because again, we get daily data, we can segment by source market, we can segment by length of stay, we can segment by number of packs, leisure, business, et cetera, So there's lots of things here. And that's pretty much a proxy to what the way demand's going to shape up for you guys, right? And that is the whole thing of my session here today. So I cannot tell you more because I don't know your business. Again, I just want to stress the relevancy of this. And Emmanuel might have some comments, right? So we've picked up Madrid and forward-looking again, and we just, you know, been looking at a number of markets which obviously are a little bit different, such as USA and its seasonality. You could say that the seasonality from a business standpoint and from a leisure standpoint from the USA is very different. The peaks of our arrivals are quite different. It is assumable that these are different customers for you, and their typology, the way they book, the car they need, the product, you know, the pricing they want is different. That's 2018, but I could show you 2019. It will be forecasted, that's all. Italy and Germany are some of the key. Actually, you know, USA is huge in Madrid. Obviously, the UK and Germany are much bigger in Spain, right? But in Madrid, because of intercontinental flight, it's huge. And then we look forward, we see, that obviously those dates have shifted. We see in 2019, less arrival in March, which is obvious, right? But from a pure arrival standpoint, down to the day, we know when the peak of arrivals will happen from U.S. travelers. Or, from a source market standpoint, I can refer to the Germans and the Italians, and you could see that their patterns are quite different. They're quite different because the school holidays are earlier in Germany this year. We get back to events. There's always an event that is a trigger to that demand. And the Italian will come later. See, and then my guys are jumping from, immediate conclusions, say, hey, if we can help you to know that there's more Americans coming, maybe you need more automatic car, which I have no idea whether that's true. But conceivably, there is information here that allows to make some decision. Packs per booking. For the destination of Madrid, 57% are 1 to 2 packs. I could have put the variation, but 29% are 3 to 5 packs, and 6 packs and plus are 14%. Could give you that to the day, tell you how it varies from last year. Then the length of stay. 10% of these people are saying 3 nights, 4 to 5 saying 19% are saying 4 to 5 nights, etc., etc. Right. This is just a showcase to give you the level of granularity we get to with the kind of data. This is how people book. There's always an assumption that the booking window is shorter, and I tell you, it really depends. There's no easy answer. We found out last week that the booking window for the Chinese is just getting bigger. We thought it was the other way around. Because they do less groups, they still travel in crowd, like 4 or 5, it's 9 families, and they book much earlier. For Chinese New Year, it was like 76 days ahead of travel. It's a lot. So a lot of our customers, when they want to talk to their target audience, they use this information to say, well, I need to grab these guys before they actually make a booking so they can prepare their trip, or depending who you are and what you want to do with it. Then again, for some of our customers, we work with some of the duty-free guys. So for example, from a duty-free standpoint, it's about who's in the airport at what time. So basically, we're able to depict the exact volume of Chinese in Changi Airport between 3 and 4 a.m. So it's easy for us to compute, actually, when people arrive or when people depart. That was put on the table earlier. Actually, with some of our customers being duty-free or airports, we actually do some mathematics to do correlation analysis between their sales of tobacco, let's say. I know it's bad. And Chinese departure. We see a perfect correlation, So these are some of the stuff we do. By the same token, we also work with, I'm digressing here, media planners, because they want to know when the corporate Americans are going to be in Heathrow. We tell them this, so that because they can put advertising for Dell computers that are focusing on these corporate travelers. Yeah. So we have an array of typology of customer within which the car industry is not truly beyond the fact that we're working with maybe a handful of you here. Just using the granularity of that data and the ability to forecast by hour the volume of demand, which I guess you could consider some form of unconstrained demand, and at least use from a seasonality standpoint. All right, there's much more of this, but I'm going to repeat myself. And I wanted to finish with here this slide. As I said, we've been involved in lots of terrorist attacks, and every time something happens, we measure the bookings on a day-by-day basis to see how the industry, how the travelers are reacting to any situation. That is just one I picked from one of our slides vis-a-vis earthquake and problems in the Hokkaido airport, where you can really measure the delta in demand, right? As I was saying, that for our customers is super useful because you do not note as a destination, you don't know that people are not booking your destination. Here you know. So as far as Hokkaido is concerned, they know that the next 3 months it's going to suck. If you try to because the distribution of this booking is through time, if you will, right? So then it's time to take measure and try to call your tour operators, launch campaigns to reassure people everything under control, that no hotel has been destroyed, that there's not going to be a rerun of that situation. All right, I'm going to pass on this. You get the drill. I'm going to leave this in this slide. This is basically some kind of computation about the different terrorist attack, Paris attack, Brussels bombing. The fundamental of it is people got used to it. When the terrorist attack happened, with the peak situation being the Bataclan, I mean, bookings from all over the world collapsed. And by the way, that was the second terrorist attack. One terrorist attack, people can cope with it, but 2 terrorist attacks, that's too much. They need to see that things are being taken care of and under control. So it took many months before bookings would actually come back. And actually, France really suffered from the Brussels bombing. From a geographical standpoint, it's kind of the same place, right? And that has seriously hurt French as a destination. But through time, through the London and Barcelona terrorist attack, people started understanding how that was shaping up, get more confident, and the recuperation time got much shorter. We basically got from 6 months before booking or coming back to some kind of normal, and the Japanese are still thinking about it, to the Barcelona situation, or after a couple of weeks, things go back to normal. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I didn't take too much time. I hope I brought a different sound of bell in your revenue management equation here. And let me know if you have any question about what we do, our business.
Thank you, Olivier. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.